right, looks like I am on air. So, I didn't. You guys probably already know I go through rabbit trails, and quite a bit of them. And maybe the question is brewing in your mind, maybe not. But if you guys notice, I've been rather lazy with regards to thumbnails. I'm not doing any outright A/B tests. For those not in the marketing know, quick thing about that, it's basically what is the receptive or reception possibility if I use this image or that thumbnail versus another. Then, depending on how you're set up from a metric standpoint, you kind of see the results of one thumbnail use over another. Okay? So, throughout maybe the last few impromptus I've done, I'm very incidental in how things shape out. So, I'm fleshing out all these things in my attempts to Dumbledore what's in my head. And I'm still working through that. I've got a naturopath, as I've said in my other videos. And I'm appreciative of him in that he's reminded me not to overly obsess. And so I've been journaling. But the question of nerding out and being a nerd, it's got its stigmas. And I think what ends up happening interpersonally, and this is what I tried to describe my impromptu today about, is when you meet people and you want to express yourself, and part of that self expression is in your own exploration of subject or topic A, B, C, whatever. Once you try to explain yourself, I don't know if you guys experience this, but I don't know if it's because of I've gone through life and I can read, however deeply I can read someone's behavior, and my BS meter goes, that person doesn't seem to give two shits about what I'm about to explain. And I know that creates a little bit of an awkwardness. And so when it comes to the stigmatic impressions, when people try to nerd out on something, and it's funny because, and as I mentioned, I'm a diverse kind of nerd. So it doesn't matter what topic I want to talk about. If you ask me about, say, martial arts, okay, or in the entertainment space, when it comes to martial arts, we've got various venues, various entertainment media. So we look at, I'll give two main examples, maybe a third, depending on how I want to go about it. So, for example, let's take maybe in the last 40 years, give or take, boxing, and nowadays mixed martial arts. Places like the UFC, and don't get me started. I tried watching something on Prime. I don't remember the name of the league, but they were doing MMA on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's going to replace UFC. I think the presentation, the commentators are trying a little too hard. But let's go down that rabbit trail. Let's park it, okay? But because of my diverse nature in my nerdic ventures, I don't even know if nerdic is a word. I'll probably dig that up in one of my dictionaries. Okay? So, in my immediate social spaces, and I'll lay it out there just because that's who I am. I have to navigate the waters of my own identity. Okay? I belong to a spiritual tradition. Okay? My own spiritual practice is influenced by my previous exposures. Leading up to the current time within the last 5 to 10 years, I have interacted with multiple people within certain sections of the social pie. Again, going back to my last impromptu about pies and slices within the pie. All right, so in my sector of the United States, the Northwest, and this is just because this is where I choose to engage. I don't know if it would have been any different if I decided to do that in Southern California, where I lived a chunk of my life. I was raised in San Diego. I made a living in LA. And I tried working with various sections within the Christian community. The way I'm wired, for whatever reason, I nerd out on various aspects of Christian tradition. Okay, I'm almost a dead giveaway about what my spiritual tradition is. I'm very, I don't know if I'm guarded, but I think when it comes to my attempts to explain that, my traversing that Christian tradition, people are going to tune out. So in the Christian tradition, there is a subject or a topic called liturgics. The moment I explain what I do within my parish, again, kind of giving myself away here. Once I explain I do this, I do this, and I do that, and particularly with my position as a minor cleric, number one, when I start introducing the art of, I don't know if this is even an accepted term within the sphere of Christian tradition, but my traversing of the art of ritual, that's where I want to go. The art of the ritual. Once I start delving and explaining that, there comes a point where you realize socially there's a very limited threshold of interest. Once I go down that trail and I get more detailed, going back to this notion of what is a nerd, and I want to give again Retro Blasting his credit because, like I said, he's a nerd in my mind because of his attention to detail. So once I go down that rabbit trail of detail, it almost seems it doesn't matter whether we're talking a man or a woman when it comes to where I'm explaining that to. It's almost like you can almost read it like a book, that interest starts waning. So, again, the sub or the description in this impromptu is I I I don't know if I should seek out being understood. I don't know if I'm making sense with regards to that. It's very, you know, a lot of people, I don't know if it's a matter of self validation, but I almost bring out an inner cynic. I'm almost, I don't know if I'm nihilist, but I can get very cynical when it comes to this notion of wanting to be understood. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm almost at a point where what's the point if people are going to ask me what I think about X, are you going to let me explain myself? It's like when people ask me, hey, what did you get your degree in? And I say, well, I got my English degree. And then they say, oh, what are you going to do with it? Teach? Well, hang on a minute. And I brought this up in other videos. I thought I was the one answering the question. Are you going to give me the opportunity to answer the question? Are you going to hear me out? And okay, part of that is me and how I compartmentalize my thoughts. Okay, that little bit is on me, and I don't know if I should apologize for that, but especially when you're Johnny on the spot, in conversation, that is a tricky sort when it comes to trying to be understood and explain yourself. But again, when I try to nerd out, it's almost like I got to set up terms of engagement. I don't know about rules of engagement, but it's more like, all right, can we get a mutual buy-in about the depth of discussion? What do you want me to explain? What do you need to know? Maybe I got to start couching my phrasing like that. So that, and that's why when it comes to this question, if people were to come up to me and say, well, hey man, what's your religion? And I'll say, I don't have a religion because because I come at it from the standpoint of if I give you answer A, you're going to make a number of assumptions based on association. That phrasing guilty by association. Not that I'm afraid of that, not that I don't want to take ownership of that, but if you really want to know who I am and how I process my navigation of whatever it is, whether it's martial arts, things like that. So let's go to martial arts because, when I talk about my spiritual tradition, my own navigating of my spiritual practice, that's a personal topic. If you want me to go into that, drop a comment. I'll do what I can to compartmentalize that because I can go down rabbit trails. But as far as my own nerddom, my own nerding out, when it comes to things, and one of the things that I get a little irritated at, particularly when I look at persons I've met in life and the energy they give on social media about various topics. Let's take the UFC and boxing, like I mentioned earlier. Let's take those two examples. And I'll go to the person in question, not the person, but a person. I don't like doing ad hominems, but I'm going to try to parlay that into the points they brought up or they try to bring up. Okay? So first, my second ex, in conjunction with my friend and his girlfriend at the time, well, they're husband and wife now. I think they were husband and wife by the time I knew them. I don't recall. I could be wrong. But the topic came, why do we, talking about my friend and me, why do we like martial arts, particularly like events? Like once he and I started nerding out on mixed martial arts or the sport of mixed martial arts. And why do we like stuff like that? Because I think in the minds of many, it's a violent venture. Yes, there's no escaping that. And I've had that in various conversations with other friends, particularly when they look at it and they don't know any, I don't know if I should say they don't know any better, or they just don't choose to go deeper beyond what they see on the screen. So those who don't spend time in the athletic venture or the endeavor of learning or even training, because I think there are multiple dimensions when it comes to exploring. I don't know about having an interest, but at least an interest in the study of martial arts or the looking up of martial arts. And the thing fascinating to me, at least in the UK, I think it's Cardiff, they have a program called Martial Studies. That's something I think you can look that up on YouTube. But they have a fascinating exploration of martial arts itself. So going back to that, venturing into maybe not training martial arts, but at least looking into the topic of martial arts just by maybe reading about it, exploring the various disciplines within that entire tradition. Going back to a previous impromptu or two about my standing on the shoulders of legends and giants. Thanks to George Kittle on that one. But going back to the tapping into the interest, not learning about why my interest is such with MMA, spectator sports, or at least that slice of the spectator sport, MMA, boxing. And of course, for those who train the martial arts, they'll have a deeper appreciation. That's just inevitable. But people look at it on the surface and they think it's, oh my God, why would you like something so violent and so gory? And what people don't realize is there is skill there. Going back to my previous discussions about, I appreciate wrestling. I just didn't really want to get so caught up in the culture of competitive wrestling in the sense of the grind, the weight cutting, weight gaining, that stuff. But I enjoy the skill, the art, and the science. And so, from a spectator point of view, I appreciate the timing, the craft. And, you know, when you look at the various scuttlebutt about the leagues, the regulation of the sport, and for those who may not have been exposed to UFC from its beginning, that there have been a lot of things in place to make that sport safer, I suppose, and more regulated to make it more, I guess, palatable to the general public, for a lack of a better term, so that it could be more widely accepted. Because for those who may not know, the UFC at the time when it began, you didn't have things like weight classes. You didn't have things like padded gloves. You didn't have things like rounds. And because if you looked at it from the beginning, yes, at mere glance, it looked very chaotic, barbaric, if you will. And there wasn't at least discernible skill when it came to the early UFCs. I get it. It's not, I would say it would only appeal to a small percentage of the population. Okay? So going to the discussion of a homeboy online talking about, why would you like the, I don't get why people glorify this kind of violence. I'm sorry, bro, but based on your activity on social media, you're one wannabe Mac Daddy who looks at women in a certain way that would, like, I guess a percentage of women online or maybe in real life would be like, bro, um, deuces, you're not my type because you're like a womanizer. I could have said that online. I could have. But it's like, why are you trading one critique for another? So again, it goes back to like this lack of appreciation, or at least this lack of interest as to why I appreciate this, and going back to the stigma when it comes to nerding out. When I want to explain to you what I do for, say, again, going back to spiritual practice, my spiritual tradition, I do things for my parish. I do this and I do that. And it's socially awkward that once I explain this and I do that for my parish, people will say, "Are you discerning X?" Well, let me navigate that. It's funny when I look at all these other depending on the dating site of choice, okay? And I don't like using the word faith based. But that's me. That's my personal take. I have a certain stigma, going back to that thing about stigmatic responses. So, yeah, faith based dating sites. And the thing I humor at is reading the various profiles. I want a man who is in tune with Jesus. I mean, if you watch Talladega Nights, like, which Jesus are you talking about? Sweet baby Jesus? Or what? Anyway, and I kind of chuckle when I look at the descriptions about what they're looking for. And particularly when you couch that between the dating profile or the dating environment, dating site environments, and you're meeting people in real life. And again, I'm almost a dead giveaway. And I'm frequenting circles, and you don't know if that's legit. You don't know if that's a legit interest in a man or whatever, right? I want a man who's in touch with Jesus. And like, I do this, I do X, Y, and Z for my parish, and they say, "Are you discerning X?" So for those, I'm giving myself away even more. And one of those key buzzwords, it's either the priesthood or religious life. It's like, girl, homegirl, are you not gonna give me to explain myself? And, and it's funny. It's almost like, it's almost as though assumptions, again, I think I tried to explain there are various assumptions made when you give off this degree of nerding out. Like, for example, liturgics. So I think I don't want to get into these too technical terms like liturgics, but I call it the art of the ritual. And I can go into another discussion about ritual in itself. It's fascinating when you look at the archaeological digs. Shout out to Peter Lorge. He has a book on the history of Chinese martial arts, and interesting insights when it comes to the archaeological findings of even in I don't know if you call it prehistoric diggings of that landmass known as the Middle Kingdom in Mandarin Zhongguo, my ancestral language of Hokkien, Tiongok, Cantonese Zhongguo, I think. Anyway, so going back to the whole stigma, it's like, I'm sorry, you asked me a question and I'm giving you my answer. And again, this goes back to the question like, how much do I want people to understand me? And particularly, are is that want to understand me, is that genuine? And again, it's going to trigger my inner cynic. Like, and this is why This is why I have an aloofness when it comes to finding another girlfriend, or another, I don't know what I call it. I tend to take the under when it comes to, like, I'm open, but I'm not desperate to finding another woman in my life. I kind of value my freedom. Hate to put it that way, but it's such where, uh, just because I do X, Y, and Z from my parish doesn't mean I'm not open. But you have to understand, this is the reality. I'm willing to share my reality with you if you want to help me. One of the things that got me bugabooed with my first ex, she goes, I don't need you to save me. Okay, great. That takes a load off my shoulder. But it's funny. I just noticed that when I try to explain what it is I do, it's almost like I'm off limits once I explain that I'm involved in the parish. Is there a possibility of contention? Sure. It's like, understand, I am called to serve a community in a certain way. Okay, I'm sorry. It's gonna rock your world. It's gonna rock your boat to a degree, but it's like, let me explain how this works, and then that's where things kind of come to a halt. And it's almost as though I gotta keep it under wraps. I don't know. What is it like? Do I need to have an inevitable reveal about what it is I do for my community? I don't know. You tell me. I thought, especially when it came to people I know who serve their community beyond a standard participant in a given community. It's like, okay, great, you have a ministry that you exercise. Well, I do the same. I have a role to fulfill, and I know you as well. And I know it's going to create a sense of gridlock. But just because I am assuming a certain role, or technically I'm a minor cleric, well, let me help you now. Let me explain to you how it works. And then once I get into that explanation, it's like, sorry. Anyway, I may do another impromptu. It's Tuesday. Uh, Still playing the unemployment game as of right now. And according to what I saw this morning, I'm playing by the rules. I'm following them, and so I am given a due benefit. So I'm kind of thankful. So I can still do my thing. We'll see how many more of these I can do. Um, I'm actually doing all right with my learning ventures. And yes, so I hope to put a bow to this for now, on this for now. It's almost something about people who are very interested in a topic. It's like, it's almost as though I got to do like that Dave Chappelle thing. I don't know if I would term it as a confidentiality agreement, but it's like, just so I understand my own expectations and the other person's expectations. It's like, how much do you want to know? And then have a signed agreement saying, yeah, I agree that I'll explain this much, and you agree to not be fake about your interest. because what I'm trying to get at is once people perceive that you're super interested and super detailed, they somehow tune out. It's like I'm sorry. Do you need me to explain things in more detail? Do you need me to make it simpler? And I have no problem with that. Just tell me. I don't know. It's it's like people go ask me why am I so quiet. Okay, I'm listening. I'm not gonna step into a lane I don't know. I want to understand things. That's the other part of nerding out. You know, it's a give and take. Meaning, the take part of it is I want to hear your story. I want to hear what you have to say. And it's one of those things I'm learning in my class right now, medical office and billing. Part of the track is the first class is therapeutic communication, and part of that is listening, active listening, and that's something I've learned in my um, call center days. Active listening, and part of nerding out is this love of knowledge. I I won't be able to receive what you're going to give me if I interject, if I interrupt. I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't know if I got to do a Dave Chappelle and make paperwork. I've often thought about that, depending on what it is I want to talk about and have certain levels of agreement and buy in. It's funny how many forms I can think of. Hey, girl, you want to be with me? Here's an application. I even have that idea floating in my head, like a what do I call it, a dating pool. You want to go out with me? Here's an application. My my representative will be with you shortly. It's like you'll know if you'll get an interview. it's it, it's almost, I don't know. We become quite a litigious society these days, where I don't know where it begins and ends in terms of these levels of agreement and confidentiality. You tell me. Put a comment out there and say, "Yeah, that's kind of quirky, bro. Why would you want?" I don't know. I thought it would be snarky and fun. Like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, my receptionist will get back to you. If you meet our requirements, we'll contact you for an interview. I don't know. But that's the thing. Like, I just have these antenna over the years where, yeah, she sounds like I can tell she's tuning out when it comes to explaining X, Y, or Z. Well, I'm sorry. It's almost like, how much do you want me to explain? Okay, here, can you sign this? Hold me accountable or keep me honest and say, yeah, only explain this much. All right. Anyway, nerding in and nerding out. Slowly but surely, nerds will get the respect deserved. Because I don't know. I don't know if there is. I think there is. The irony is whether or not we acknowledge that we only want a superficial level of understanding, of knowledge. Like, just give me the Fisher Price version of X. Okay. But it's going to be on you if you only want to get as much information. That's on you. If you only want to be so much informed. And you got to do the heavy lifting of discerning and figuring out what's correct and what's not. I think we as a society are so comfortable with band-aids. Take your pick of what grade, what size, what material. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's, I think in some ways I've become numb to a lot of X because when it's all said and done, I think a lot of people don't have too much interest in a deeper understanding of X. They don't want to, as Nick Norwitz had put out there, stay curious. Nobody is truly curious. And I also don't think that, particularly when it comes to a deeper understanding, too many are still afraid of moving the needle in this attempt to get better, to upgrade their training, as I mentioned in other videos or other impromptus I've done, when it comes to a deeper understanding of X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter if we're talking computers, if I'm talking martial arts, if I'm talking religious attitudes and traditions. I don't want to enter that space, bro, because you're too detailed for my liking. Just give it to me. Just give me the simple, clear cut band aid answer. And so, as Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility, and I'll extend that to with great freedom comes great responsibility. Freedom does cost that $1.05. I don't know how much it is now, inflation considered or lack thereof. You know, there is a price to pay for freedom, and part of that is doing the lifting of knowing more, getting better, being smarter, being more informed, being able to make the right decisions with the information you're given, whether you go out there and grab the bull by the horns to get whatever knowledge you can get your hands on and get into the weeds of detail. And it's easy to get suckered in. It's easy to get mired in the minutia. Understandable, but at least you're giving it a shot. At the very least, you're not settling, and that's still something. There is that time and place for settling and not being settled. In that, I don't know if I know enough about X, Y, or Z, and then if you want to resolve to solve that, if you feel unsettled about your knowledge of whatever topic of interest you have. And if that makes you a nerd, own it. You could be a nerd of Legos. You can be a nerd of basket weaving. You could be a nerd of carpentry. I have a few people in my parish who are carpenters or are woodworkers. It's fascinating. My dad, he may not have been a professional woodworker, but he knew how to work with wood. And it was fascinating to behold growing up, where he tried to make us whatever clubhouse. He did his deck. On one level, he was a nerd there. I mean, I don't know if I show genuine interest in his woodworking ventures, but I would be fascinated if I had the right receptors to hear him out. At the very least, listen, hear people out. But as my inner cynic would say, I just gotta not worry so much about people understanding me and where I'm coming from. And this is something that my younger sister and I just kind of scuttlebutt over with respect to our upbringing. We don't know if our parents have our self-knowledge generally interested. If they're interested in knowing who we are. Is it sad? On one level, yeah. But at the same time, it's what I've come to terms with. Okay, there might be another impromptu depending on how far I finish my studies. Well, I've got this cadence I have scheduling wise. Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm usually helping my friends out at their home care facility. We'll see how well I can keep managing that. There's a chance, depending on how funds look, I'll uh, likely kick the tires on Sean Baker's people. And I'm still wrestling, given that my primary care doc is leaving at the beginning of 2026. If that's a good segue into transitioning to Sean Baker's people, I'll still probably keep my naturopath. Because I'm really getting intrigued by the concept of pulling levers, given you have various levers to pull. So that's where I'm at right now. Given what I said about finances, we'll see if I can kick the tires on another jujitsu tuition. But this would be with the dudes at School of Budo, just because. And I'll probably do another impromptu about that very topic. But that's where I'm at right now. So I have, at least as far as playing the game goes, my unemployment benefits are kicking. So thanks again for hearing me rant. Yeah, I'll call it a rant. Because nerds, we're still not getting the respect. I don't know if we ever will. Is that a hill I want to die on? Is that a cause? I don't know. I try not to have a cause. Okay, guys. Until the next impromptu, again, we'll see how my availability looks as time goes on. Peace out. And again, continue the conversation. Just drop a comment if you want. Doesn't matter what kind. I'll address it in kind. So peace out, and I'll catch you on the other side.